Greetings and welcome back to the living room of champions. We are really pleased to be here today to talk about the intersections between the unique challenges of our athletes and mental health. My name is Raul Andrews Jr. I am the executive director of the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, and I have three champions with me here in the virtual living room. Kara Winger, we've got Matthew Bowling, and we've got Kendra Chambers, all who bring very unique perspectives, but who have distinguished themselves at multiple levels in the field, in the track and field arena. So welcome to the virtual living room champions.
Thank you.
So why don't we just start with some brief introductions with thanks, of course, to Athletes for Hope, who is a presenting sponsor of this session with the APA Foundation. Kara, let's start with you. Talk to us briefly about who you are and what brings you here today.
I am Kara Winger. Like you said, I threw the javelin for a very, very long time, including a little foray back into the world of track and field this season, 2024. I'm 38 years old. I went to 4 different Olympic Games, and Paris would have been my 5th, but I kind of set myself up to qualify in a way that was maybe more challenging than the rest of the world needed to do so, but kind of on my own terms. Like, a lot of different things went into that. 9-time national champion, 2-time American record holder, and the silver medalist from the World Championships in 2022, which was my final season, I thought, and then kind of revisiting the sport this season was a really fun adventure in knowing myself. So we'll get a lot back into that, but I am by far the oldest track and field athlete on the panel today, and thrilled to have been a part of the sport I love for so long.
Well, Kara, thank you for sharing that, and congratulations on all that you've done and then all that you will continue to do, particularly by joining us in the virtual living room today. Let's go to Matthew Bowling. Matthew, talk to us a little bit about who you are and what you've done.
Yeah, so I'm Matthew Bowling. This is my first year as a professional track and field athlete. I went to University of Georgia and won 2 national championships in the indoor 200. I tried out for the 400 this year at the Olympic trials, and 24 years old, so I'll be going out for LA in 28. Well,
Matthew, welcome again to the virtual living room, brought to you by Athletes for Hope and the APA Foundation. We're going to be cheering you on all the way to LA, and you're a sprinter, so we don't have to go to distance. We're going to make it easy. Well, let's go mid-distance. We got, the Kendra Chambers with us. Kendra, talk to us a little bit about what you've done. Thank you.
Sure.
Welcome to the virtual living room.
Thank you for having me. My name is Kendra Chambers, recently married, so it's actually Kendra Coleman now, but I use either, so no worries. I attended the University of Texas. I was 8-time All-American there, 4-time Big 12 champion when we were in the Big 12. I'm 33 years old. I actually just recently retired from the sport, so thank you. July was my last meet. I've had a great career. I was a 2-time Team USA member, and I qualified for the World Indoor Championships. And I run everything from the 4x4 to the 400 to the 800 and also the 1500, but wouldn't say that's my forte. But I live in Houston, Texas now, and the next steps for me are possibly coaching. So I'm excited to embark on that new adventure.
Well, Kendra, as a fellow Houstonian, welcome you to the best city in the state of Texas.
Yes.
I think Matthew would agree with me. Let's get into a little bit of the protein in the virtual living room. And Kendra Coleman, we're going to start with you and work our way back and come back down. So, Kendra, when you're getting ready to perform at the highest level, obviously it's not a surprise to you that the meet is coming up. What's going on in your mind as you try to prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, psychologically to perform at the highest level?
Sure, that's a great question. I think as I grew up in the sport and I became a veteran, I learned to be able to control my nerves. So the one thing that I'm thinking about as I'm going into a meet is all of the groundwork and foundation that I've already have done up to that point. So I think about the training I put in, the mental exercises, I've visualized the races and the competition. There's everything that my coach and I have done to left no rock unturned. So that gives me confidence going in. So when I go into a meet, I'm like, hey, like I've been here, done this, we're ready. And now we just go get the job done. And typically I feel like races are so much easier than training. So I use that to be like, hey, you only have to do this one time, give it your best effort. And I'm able to have confidence and calm my mind when I think about that.
No, thank you for sharing that. Matthew, how about you? You're getting ready to get out there. You don't have minutes to get done. You got seconds to get done. What's going on in your mind when you get ready to perform at the highest level?
Yeah, I think my weekly routine is pretty much the same. Usually if I compete Friday, on Monday, I'm super hype. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna crush it this week. And then by Wednesday, Thursday, the nerves start to set in. You're like, oh, wait, I got to run in a couple of days. But yeah, you really just got to rely on your training. In college, you race a lot. As a professional, not so much. So you kind of got to get that confidence from training more so than a string of races. And you got to remind yourself that you come out to practice every day and you work your hardest and give it 110%. And then when you toe on the line, you got to believe that you worked harder than anyone else out there, and just give it your best. So, yeah, make sure to always eat right the week before. I mean, really the whole year because training's so hard. But, yeah, just got to leave no stone unturned and be ready for every competition.
Thank you for that, Matthew. Let's go to Kara. She's that javelin thrower, setting world stage on fire, 4-time Olympian. When you're there, what's going through your mind? You've qualified, you're making this trip, it's all in front of you. What's going through your mind? How do you stay mentally agile in that moment, Kara?
So something I learned about myself even more than I already knew this year was I am not necessarily a championship performer. Like some people can figure out how to overcome that mental barrier and really perform on the world's biggest stage. I managed to do that one time. And I'm so proud of that one time, but I wasn't always that person, and that's okay. I'm very proud of doing my best in every situation, to the best of my ability. I worked on the mental stuff. I did my best to overcome the nerves that kind of always got the best of me. And the experiences that I had in succeeding at that were incredible. But kind of the thing that I really learned worked for me in 2022 as I was sort of exiting the sport, and in 2024 and coming back, was just simply presence. Like Kendra and Matthew both talked about leaving no stone unturned. I absolutely did that too. But when it comes to the actual competition, just really settling into this moment matters. This cue is important right now, and I need to fully focus on what that is and just remain present in each and every moment, each and every footfall down the runway, to make sure that I'm hitting those positions. And that's really what worked for me in 2022 as well. The thing that helps me maintain that mindset is having loved ones right there. So my husband actually coached me in 2022, and that was by design. I was like not having a fun time around the world by myself. And I said, what is something that I can do to celebrate this final season? And it was having him next to me. He'd always had great technical ideas, and we were athletes together for 10 years. So like, why not work together and travel the world together one more time? That experience really showed me how much I knew about the event, and I was able to really bounce ideas off him, and then therefore be fully present in kind of everything important in my life was right there. Why not like soak up each moment? And it just made performances that much more fun and that much better in my final moments. But if you can really stay in the moment, in the discomfort of, do I know what I'm doing, and be sure that you do, that's when the magic really happens.
Staying in the moment, your breathing, your diet, your routine, keeping that centered. This is Raul Andrews. I'm the host of the Virtual Living Room, talking about Olympic trials and mental health with some of our champions here in the Virtual Living Room. We've got Kendra Coleman, we got Kara Winger, and we got Matthew Bowling. Kara, let's go to another question for you. Sometimes when you go out, no matter what your mindset was going in, all those hours of training, all those days of training, and then maybe the performance that you anticipated was a disappointment to you. how do you come back the next time? You know, if you put all that time in and then you don't get the result, how are you able to come back?
Feeling your feelings is the first step. Sitting in kind of the pain of those moments, like disappointing yourself is really the hardest thing that an athlete can go through. You think a lot about your loved ones that supported you, a lot about your coaches, all of that stuff, but it really does come down to, you know, now that I have some separation, like it was me not being brave enough to be my best in those moments when I was disappointed. And that is a hard thing to look at yourself in the mirror and face. But if you can, and if you could find the tools, whether it's therapy, which is what I did going into 2022, or sports psychology, if you want a more focused performance aspect to the mental health approach, or just journaling or whatever tool like actually works for you to accept what has happened in the past and learn from it instead of letting it weigh you down. It's really important to work through that stuff and not just push it to the back burner, because it's okay to be disappointed in yourself as long as you figure out the tools that can help you learn from that experience and move forward. So time heals all wounds, and that sucks really a lot in the moment, but can be really valuable moving forward. Fuel for the fire.
Thank you so much. Matthew, how about you? How do you come back after a less than satisfactory outing by your own standards?
Yeah, I agree. I've utilized sports psychology before. I tend to do that more before a race, though, just to kind of go over strategies I want to do. And I feel like that really helps me to be present in the moment. But after a race that I might not be satisfied with, I usually just go through the emotions like anyone else would. A lot of times I catch myself the night of a bad race rewatching the race a lot and kind of just like being like, oh, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. And a lot of people might not think that's healthy, but for me, it's healthy for me because I'm able to take those things that I think I can do better, and then on Monday's practice, utilize that. I feel like that keeps me hungry, because if I know, oh, I did this wrong, this is why I ran how I didn't want to, then it allows me to keep pushing forward.
All right. Kendra Coleman, how do you come back after a less than satisfactory outing by your standards?
Yeah, I think like everyone has said already, it's just really important to work with someone else. An unbiased opinion really helps you recenter, and realize like the big picture. Not one bad race is going to define me or my worth, and one bad workout isn't going to define me or my career worth of, you know, amazing things that I've done. So I have been able to find people in my life, like my family, like my husband, like my therapist, to just make sure that that's always at the forefront of things. And then as far as like personally, like deep diving into like feeling really bad about a race that did not go well, especially when I prepared so well, it can be frustrating, but I tend to have like a journal. So after every race, I'll write down basically like what went well, what went wrong, and then what I really want to improve on for the next time. And I have those three things in every journal, every race. I just kind of jot that down just so I'm aware, and then I try not to make the same mistake twice, right? So I look back on those journal writings often. And yeah, I think it's just, you know, realizing that we're not perfect, we're human, and we are going to have bad races. In a race like mine, the 800, it's very strategic, and there are things that are out of your control. So my coach and I always talk about, you know, just making sure that I can control what I can control. And I have fallen in races, and I have to get up and keep running. So it's just part of the journey. So I don't take it to heart, but I try to learn from it.
No, thank you for sharing that. And Kendra, let's stay with you. Let's talk a little bit about Paris. You know, there's district and conference and other world championships every year, but the Olympics is not every year. So Paris came up. There were a lot of excitement around the world about the Olympics in Paris. And you do all that prep, and then you're not going to be on the team. How did you deal with the realization that Paris wasn't going to be your time?
Yeah, that was really hard, and particularly for me because I had announced my retirement going in, and my sponsor and I knew that. going into the meet, into the Olympic trials. So I don't know. It was actually really hard. I'm not going to lie. I think previous teams that I had made, it was like, oh, okay, next time, like I use that as motivation, almost like next time I'll make it. And when there is no next time, it's like, this weight is just on you. Like, are you sure? Like self-doubt creeps in, like maybe you can run another year, like all this crazy stuff happens. So I think for me, it was actually really hard. And I had, a ton of friends competing in Paris, and I was so happy for them, like genuinely happy for them. But I think it's really hard to just like remove yourself from the sport. So as much as I wanted to sit on the couch and watch Paris from home, it was really mentally hard for me to do that because I wasn't going to have another chance. I was retiring and that was it. And so the hardest part actually about not making the Paris team was having to go overseas. So our season is still, happening overseas. And so I did compete in 3 meets after the Olympic trials. And really picking myself up is probably one of the things I'm most proud of, is getting able to get back on that start line and have a pretty good race overseas. I had one race where I ran really well, and I was like, wow, okay, like all this bad talking you've been doing to yourself, like you're still here, you're still doing great things, even if you aren't on the Paris team. So in a way, I think hindsight, that was like a blessing in disguise, is like getting back up, getting back on the line and really proving like, hey, all this hard work is still paying off.
Thank you for sharing that grit, that resilience, that willingness to go back, even in the face of disappointment. Matthew, let's hear from you. The dream of there in Paris didn't happen, but LA is out there. Talk to us about how you felt and what you had to do to try to recover after you found out you weren't going to go to Paris on the team.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely hurt a lot. I think for me, I took a couple of days I found out, I think, on a Saturday or Sunday, and I usually don't start practice till Monday. So I just kind of took a couple of days to just be with my emotions. And then I knew I still wanted to keep competing for the rest of the season. So I found a meet in the US, and then I found 3 meets in Europe. And I just kept training. I knew, because I did the 400 at trials, this was my first year doing the 400. So there's a lot of tweaks I knew I could make. So I kind of really just dialed in on that and told myself, okay, Matt, you got 4 years now to get right for LA. Like, it really stinks I didn't make this team, but I know that there's more that I want out of the sport than just making one team. So now I really just got to lock in and get right for the upcoming World Championships and the next Olympics.
You're going to do it. We know you're going to do it. So we're going to be ready for you when it's time to go.
Thank you.
Kara, you talked a little bit in your introduction about your trial experience, and we want to give you a chance to do that. But in a 2-part question, how did you redefine success for yourself after that event, right?
After Olympic trials?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And Kendra's been so supportive and wonderful in like my story about this. So thank you, first of all. So I said I was retiring in 2022, and I did. Not officially, but didn't throw the javelin in 2023. I had earned a bye to the Diamond League, or to the World Championships in 2023 by winning the Diamond League final in 2022. And still I was done. Like, I was happy to not be throwing the javelin anymore. But you said it yourself, the Olympics only happens once every 4 years. I went to 4 Olympics and I never made the final. I actually have thrown the furthest ever that anyone has in the women's javelin and not made the final. Like, my 13th place in Rio in 2016 is the record for the 13th spot at the Olympics, and 12 go to the final, the medal round. So that moment hurt the most out of any performance that I've ever had, because you have to be in the final to earn a medal. And I feel so lucky to have been on 4 Olympic teams, but that was just the next step. Like, we always, as athletes, want to level up, and we're always aware of what success means, like in the context of our career so far. So that moment really sucked. And yeah, I went to World Championships in Budapest. I watched from the stands. I felt no regret about turning down my bye and being done. But I loved the experience of knowing what I was doing in 2022. So this season, I was like, well, what if I train less, enjoy it more, and more confident in my technique, and just see what could happen at the Olympic trials? I think another aspect of mental health around athletics is the application of importance to making that Olympic team too from other people. Like, it truly wasn't about, I didn't need to make a 5th Olympic team to be confident in my process. I just was curious. I just wanted to know, like, can I do this differently? Do I really understand my technique and still go? Like, that would be so cool. But everybody that found out about it was like, you are going to make a 5th Olympic team. And the pressure was immediately applied to the situation. But the real blessing in going to the Olympic trials at 38 years old, 20 years after my first Olympic trials, and not making the team was proving to myself that I was totally fine either way. I just wanted to know, could I do it or not? And when I didn't, and I was completely satisfied with how I had done it also, that was a real gift heading into kind of the rest of my life, because I just got to find out.
Oh, thank you for sharing. So, Matthew, you go into your home or your parents' home, you got stuff all over the wall. And here we are talking about the low points and how do we come back from the low points. How do you, other than turning pro, which is a big deal, how did you redefine success for yourself after disappointment for making the team?
Yeah, I think for me, because my first year pro was an Olympic year in college, I still went to World Championship trials. I went to 1 Olympic trials, but those years were really centered around the NCAA, and most of the coaches try to get you at your best for NCAA championships so you can win a team title. So everything else, all the professional stuff's kind of in the back burner. So this was my first year really locking in on Olympic trials and a new coach program and a new event. So I felt a bit like every meet, I felt like I needed to make a little bit bigger of a jump to be where I needed to be. It felt almost a little bit more rushed to find success in the year because trials was coming up so quick. So I think after the Olympic trials, I was really able to put into perspective that, okay, my next goal is really 4 years from now. I mean, World Championships is always going to be a goal every year, but I think the Olympics is definitely everyone's biggest goal. So the next 4 meets I ran, I was really able to put into perspective little wins that I got. Like if I PR'd by a little bit, or if I saw improvement in one area, I was really able to celebrate those wins and be like, wow, I'm slowly getting closer and closer to a goal, opposed to not running a huge PR and being disappointed about it.
Thank you for that. And Kendra, you shared a little bit of your journey in this line about redefining success, and you went in knowing I'm retiring when this is all over, but still you're there in the arena. And so how did you redefine success in a way that might help some others who are watching us from the virtual living room?
Sure. I mean, for us, the main thing is like consistency. I think if any track and field athlete is consistent, it's a success. It's really hard to go year from year to not have an injury, to not have just one of those years where you're like, what's happening to my body? So I think for me, even going into Olympic trials, I had one of the better seasons that I've had in a long time. And so I was already happy, satisfied. I had already felt like I had come back and like kind of turned the corner on my fitness. And so there are so many positives that I took, and that really gave me confidence going into the trials. And at the end of the day, I'm a big journaler, so I did write again. I was like, whether or not I make the Paris team, I think at the end of the day, I've done what I've needed to do in my season. I've run the times, I've had great training, and, maybe I can do some summer meets after. But at the end of the day, it was really about understanding that the success isn't necessarily the time on the clock. Like Matt said, it's like it's everything else. You know what I mean? It's like the little things that I improved on, and the shaving off a half a second, which is really hard to do in track and field. So just taking those little wins and celebrating yourself is so important, because if you don't, then no one else will. So learning how to do that on your own for me was like a game changer.
Well, thank you so much for that. We're coming around the top of the curve. This is Raul Andrews, the Executive Director of the American Psychiatric Association Foundation. I'm your host, work in collaboration with Athletes for Hope, and you're in the virtual living room with Kendra Coleman, Kara Winger, and Matthew Bowling. These are our champions. We're proud of them, and we want you to know that you need to be proud of them as well as for their willingness to share their journeys. Kendra Coleman, I know this is going to be the hardest question we ask you in the virtual living room, but of all of those achievements, which is the one you're the most proud of all of your achievements in track and field?
Oh, wow. That's a hard question. That's tough. I would say, honestly, is maybe the achievement of qualifying for 3 straight Olympic trials. For me, that was like, I would have never dreamt that, like not even in college was I thinking that was on my radar. My junior year was the first time I ran the 800. So just by saying that alone, the fact that I would make in the future 3 more Olympic trials in that event, that was so new to me, and I was still learning how to run it. That's just something I'm really proud of.
Thank you for sharing. Matthew Boland, your crowning achievement of all those achievements, all those medals and ribbons, all the years, what's the top one for you?
So far, I'd say probably the first national championship I won in college, just because I think most elite athletes saw a lot of success in high school. And then when you get to college, you're going against every single elite athlete from high school, from the last 4 years. So it can be scary. I mean, there's a lot of big names. But when I won that first one, it really, like, I knew I belonged, and I knew I could do it again. And so even to this day, those 2 national championships in college give me a lot of confidence and just remind me that, like, I really belong here.
Kara, I know it's a lot. Kara, but we need to know, what is the number one crowning achievement?
Just because it's been so many years, right? But that's really the thing. I would say, in a word, longevity. And one of the components of that is I did not throw a personal best for 12 years. I set the American record in 2010, and then I did not improve materially until 12 years later through 2 ACL injuries, which I'm extremely proud of from a mental perspective, because the shift in how I thought about technique had to happen to even allow myself to get past the fear of hurting my knee again, right? But the bigger part of that longevity is I was the oldest from 2010 in the United States, like in the women's javelin field. Starting at 24 years old, I was the oldest person in the field, and that remained true for the next 20 years. But now that's not true. Now there are many women who are in their late 20s, early 30s throwing the javelin still. And I'm extremely proud to have been a part of that kind of improvement of the event overall of that time.
So Matthew, what do we want other athletes and individuals who are out there to be thinking about, and how they can bounce back from setbacks in performance, whether it's at the elite level or whether it's just the everyday level? What do they need to know?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and what I tell myself for good advice, that you wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for a reason. I believe I was given the ability to run because there's more for me in it. So if I'm to have a bad meet or bad competition and just quit, I'd be doing myself a disservice. So I think everybody, whether it's track or school or whatever it is given a special and unique gift, and you just got to keep nurturing that gift. And if something goes wrong or someone tries to push you off that path, you just got to keep at it.
Thank you. Kendra Coleman, how do we come back when we get a setback? What do we need to know from you?
Yeah, I would say, redefine your goals. They're going to change. And I think the one constant thing in life is change. Be prepared to be flexible, to be adaptive, to change the people around you. One year, it could be working, and the next year it's not working. So be able to be a voice of reason when everyone is telling you that you shouldn't change coaches, or you shouldn't move, or you shouldn't fire this agent, or it's your life and it's your career, and if you are the only person in the room advocating for yourself. So I would say to just make sure that you're always constantly putting yourself first. You are thinking and redefining your own goals constantly, and you're ready for change at any moment. And I think that's the real key to success.
All right, Kendra Coleman, a couple of questions before we get you out of the virtual living room. What's next for Kendra Coleman?
Oh, yeah. I would love to coach. I have the coaching bug right now. I really love being around track and field. And as Kara said, it's going to be fun being a spectator and, watching LA, and hopefully I get to go in person. But I love the track and field athletes. I love our community, and I would love to give back in some capacity, especially as a coach.
Thank you for that. Matthew Boland, what's next?
Well, right now I'm on break for about a month, getting some well-needed rest and recovery, and then I'm right back to the grind in October, getting ready for World Championships, and just building on every year up until LA 28.
Kara Winger, what's next?
So similar to Kendra and Matthew, like kind of sticking around the event, the sport that we all love, in new ways. So I've gotten to do some really fun, like journalism-esque things for the throws, some announcing, a little bit of camps for javelin, and working on like building databases, resources for coaches and athletes alike. But I honor, like, I am so passionate about the coach-athlete relationship that I, as the athlete, want to help coach coaches in the event that I love rather than coaching the athletes, because I just think I'm better suited to explain the technique to people who are going to have impacts on generations upon generations of athletes. And I don't think I have that special gift that is coaching, which Kendra does, and so many other people are already equipped with. So just kind of sticking around, like being in the cracks and crevices in an effort to support the next 17 generations of athletes that come through, because it's just so fun to watch people now from a spectator point live their dreams out loud. Like that's what makes it so cool to watch athletes, is like we're brave enough to say, I want to do this. I'm going to do it publicly in front of the world, whether I succeed or don't. So reminding them of that, how brave they are, is one of my favorite parts of being kind of on this side.
Well, Coach Winger, the coach of coaches, exit question, final question for all three of you champions. You're 14 years old. What does today's Kara Winger tell 14-year-old Kara Winger that's going to help her, or somebody who's like her, move on their own journey?
I don't have a lot of regrets about teenage Kara. I think that continuing to play, like just reinforcing that message that do everything, honor every relationship, like put all of your eggs in all of your baskets, because there's so much richness of life to be found in sport and in school and in any extracurricular activity that I'm doing. Just keep leading into all the areas, because that's ultimately what helped me succeed in sport, is being involved in multiple dreams at once. So just keep doing what you're doing, young Kara.
All right, Matthew Boland, young Matthew, what do we tell him to get him on his journey and keep him on his journey?
Yeah, I'm kind of similar in that I don't have too many regrets, but I think that I would continue to tell myself that the sky's the limit. Don't set any limits on success, because I remember as a kid I had very lofty goals, and a lot of people were like, you can't do that. But I had that like childlike confidence that's just like, oh, I can, I'm gonna show you wrong. And I would just remind myself to keep doing that and keep being you.
Thank you, Matthew. Coach Coleman, what would you tell young Kendra of 14 about her journey and how to find the right
Yeah, I would just tell her to trust herself. I think a lot of times there's seeds of doubt that this world will tell you. And yeah, you're on the right path. Trust your gut. Go with your instincts. You know more than you think you do. So trust yourself.
So we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that the 40 acres of the University of Texas Austin is now in the SEC. And I believe there's a game coming up. So, Coach Coleman, horns or dogs?
Horns. Hook 'em.
Mr. Bowling?
Go dogs.
Dogs or horns? Hey, Kara, you want to break the tie? Horns or dogs?
I spent quite a few years training in Austin, so.
Matthew, I think they got you outnumbered, but we know you can outrun them.
$5 on it.
See, Matthew went to the wrong high school, and now he's outnumbered at the horns. Eagle fight never dies. Matthew, eagle fight never dies.
Is being attacked.
Let's hear about straight. Go ahead and get a straight thing out there for you. Baby.
Oh, man.
You give some Crusader love. We'll give it to you.
Go Crusaders, baby.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, this is, again, the virtual living room. We've been here with 3 elite champions, Kara Winger, Kendra Coleman, Matthew Bowling. My name is Raul Andrews Jr., Executive Director of the American Psychiatric Association Foundation. It's been a privilege to be your host, working in partnership with Athletes for Hope. And we want you to stay hopeful. And if there's anybody out there who's struggling in any way, we want you to know that 988 is available 24/7, 365. You can call, text, or chat 988 if you or somebody you know or love needs help. But if you don't think that you need 988's resources, we want you to rely on the words of wisdom from the best of the best, Kara Winger, Matthew Bowling, Kendra Coleman. I thank all of you for everything you've done, and I want you to know your country is proud of you, no matter where you were in the trials and where you were on the podium, because you're the best of us, and we need you now more than ever. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.